Well, good morning everyone, and welcome to Nazareth Contemplative Prayer here on this Saturday morning. I want to begin with a prayer. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, and his steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, and his steadfast love endures forever. Lord, we give thanks for the wonder of your love and for your creation, which goes on creating and recreating. Even in the struggles and difficulties of our own lives, we know that you are always present, and you always lead us through the darkness into the wonder of morning. And we know that every autumn that leads to winter will lead to spring and summer. We give thanks for each of the seasons of your years. We give thanks for your presence with us in all things. And we pray that you will be with us today and all those who are watching as we open our eyes and our spirit to the wonder of autumn and to your presence all around us. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. Well, thank you for being with me on this. It's a bit of a grey autumn day, it has to be said, but I thought we'd come out and explore my favourite parks because they're the nearest to my house, Green Park and St James's Park. The last time we were here, it was just before summer, and the whole of this area where I'm sitting now was full of long wild grass, and now it's full of browning, beautiful, crisp leaves. And just behind me, I don't know whether you remember, there was the wild flower meadow planted initially by Prince Charles, and now all that's been cut as well and looks rather barren. But autumn is not a barren time. Autumn, as we all know, is a time of great beauty in its own right. And today I'm going to be reading some autumnal poems for you and walking through these incredible trees. Before I do, I want us to acknowledge what a difficult time this is for many people as the days get shorter and the night comes sooner and the mornings are darker, and as we enter into this time of winter. I know that for many the thought of autumn turning to winter is not easy, especially in this time of lockdown where many of us feel cut off from those we love, and many too anxious about their work situations and what's going to happen and how the future will turn out. I heard this week about my elder brother who works in the Alfriston Centre, which is the most amazing place, which looks after about 85, a community centre for about 85 elderly people. This Alfriston Centre is near Surbiton, and it's been going since 1949. And he's the cook, but he's much more than the cook and chef. He takes such delight in creating the most wonderful meals for this group of elderly people who have become his friends, and he also arranges entertainments for them and music halls, and at Christmas a pantomime. And of course, during this lockdown, the Alfriston Centre was unable to open, and so undeterred, the centre went ahead with my brother cooking hot meals which could be delivered to people's houses, and arranging to bring all the elderly people in the centre support, helping them to doctor's appointments and bringing them groceries and phone calls and all the kind of support you need, arranging hairdressing and chiropody, and just trying to keep people's sense of community alive even during lockdown. And there's one elderly man who badly burnt himself in the kitchen and had to be put in a hotel because he could no longer look after himself. And within a few hours, my brother had him on the list and was delivering a hot meal for him, and he was just overwhelmed with delight that he'd received this hot meal. And one woman that they took a meal to said it was the first hot meal she'd had in 3 months. So it warms my heart to see these acts of caring and acts of sharing. But unfortunately, all these things are at risk. And last week, my brother heard that they were trying to close the Alfriston Centre down because they didn't have enough money to keep it going, and that his job was in jeopardy, and so was the driver who drives all the hot meals. And all week he's been fighting, trying to get his local MP involved and offering to work for only half his salary so that he can continue this service. I just pray and hope and ask for your prayers too, that this and other services like it will continue, because as the driver said in the interview he had with the managers, he said, if we stop doing this, who else is going to look after this group of elderly people? We are their source of hope and their source of community. And I know there are many other people like that in our country. I think our contemplative prayer is not just a kind of passive space, but it's an awareness of the world and of the suffering of the world and of all those who need Christ's care, Christ's love. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was lonely, you visited me. For whatever you did for the least of my brothers and sisters, you did it for me. This compassion, this attentive compassion, this kind of care that places like the Alfriston Centre in Surbiton is providing, absolutely essential at this time. And so too are our churches. All your messages of support are so uplifting. And I hope and I pray that things like this contemplative prayer and our services each day and the kind of being with courses and things that are taking place in our church and other churches like it can provide that sense of compassionate presence, that God is always with us. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Since Thursday, I've been working out plans of how we can keep our work with people who are homeless refugees from all different parts of the world. Every Sunday we provide hot food, laundry service and showers for them. And we're trying to work out a system where it's completely safe, where we can continue to provide that service for some of those who are most dispossessed. This country has always had such a heart and a compassionate a way of being, compassionate values, and it's so important, as I know you will agree, to keep that compassion alive as autumn turns to winter and as more people feel the loneliness of these days. So today, as we remember all those in our society and perhaps us too who need God's compassionate love and care, today we also pray for the Disability Conference which is taking place at St. Martin's, for Fiona Macmillan, who's the most wonderful woman, member of our Nazareth community, who's been organising this Disability Day for many months, and all her helpers and those taking part, including Jonathan Evans and all our clergy team. We pray that God will bless them and all those who take part in this Disability Day. Now let's think about autumn. Now this is called Green Park, but it's not green at the moment, it's Golden Park. It's Bronze Park. It's a park full of colour. And if you stay inside, you don't perhaps notice the wonder of our seasons. The way nature is always always changing, that this pattern of life, of fruiting, of dying and being born again is continually taking place all around us. And today I'd like, as I walk through the park, to share with you some poems about autumn, which I think capture both the life, the fruitfulness, but also the dying and the longing for new life. I'm going to begin with a poem, and then I'm going to start walking. But this first poem is called Leaves by Elsie Brady. How silently they tumble down and come to rest upon the ground, to lay a carpet rich and rare beneath the trees without a care, content to sleep, their work well done, colours gleaming in the sun. At other times they wildly fly until they nearly reach the sky, twisting, turning through the air, till all the trees are stark and bare, exhausted drop to earth below, to wait like children for the snow. I think that's a children's poem, Leaves by Elsie Brady, but capturing the joy of the fall of leaves and the beauty and the shine of leaves as they lay upon the ground. Okay, I'm going to start walking with you through Green Park, or Golden Park as it is today, and we'll read some more poems along the way. My foot has gone to sleep, so you'll have to wait while I stagger a moment. I hope during these walks we've learnt that, well, every type of weather is beautiful. I mean, I used to think that you have to wait for the sunshine, but there is something even about a day like today, which is slightly damp and moist and grey, but with these startling colours through the leaves, and that is also very special. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Look at the shapes and colours and patterns of those leaves. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. I don't know whether in this shot with the aeroplane going overhead, you get a sense of the difference and the shades and the colour of that one tree. I mean, so often we just walk past these things and we don't realise that every tree is like an impressionist painting, with its oranges and its burnt umbers and its golds and its greens. We often say leaves are green, but far from it. Look at them. Look at them during the autumn. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. That misty grey sky. And of course, as we talk about autumn, it wouldn't be right if we didn't probably read the most famous autumnal poem of them all. To Autumn by John Keats. This poem is so full of sort of sensuality, so full of the abundance of nature and creation that you can almost taste it. to autumn, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit and vines that rode the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more like flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has o'er-brimmed their clammy cells. Who hath not so often who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swathe and all its twinned flowers. And sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Where are they? Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too. While bared clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue, then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows borne aloft, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the redbreast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. It's a beautiful poem, quite difficult to read because it's almost like a tongue twister in places. It's so full of abundance, so full of ripeness. To bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees. Well, what about this line? While bared clouds bloom, the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Say that again. While bared clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. I think we've all seen that, those bared clouds blooming, and the stubble plains and the rosy hue. Well, what about this one? Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the redbreast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. You've got to admit, John Keats has got an ability with language. I wish I had that ability. I wish I had the ability to read it without my tongue tripping over itself. It's such rich, fruitful, autumnal language. It's such romantic language, passionate language. Anyway, let's get moving, and we'll have another poem later along the road. What a lovely path this always is, past benches, which I've told you before are my favourite things because they're just inviting us to sit down and contemplate, inviting us to sit and to look and to be. And they're free for anyone to sit on. How lucky is that? Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Look at that carpet of leaves. I hope my camera is picking out the beauty of that. It's absolutely stunning. Each leaf creating a pattern upon a pattern. Each leaf different from the other, each one unique, like all of us. I hope this will encourage you to look out of the window, take a breath of autumnal air, and also, if you can, go out into your garden or go out, open the window or go out for a walk today and just have a look at how many colours in the trees that you can see. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Now, just look at the colour there. You know, sometimes you think you've got to go to an art gallery to see a painting, but isn't that a painting? That's God's painting this morning. And I think it's so important that in these times of where we feel a diminishment, where we feel that we're living through a time of struggle and lockdown, where we're unsure of the future, but I think it's so important that we don't lose sight of the eternal truths, the eternal presence of God with us, the eternal presence of love, greater than all human understanding, the wonder of the world in which we live, and the joy of human friendship. And this ability that we have to pass through seasons. We've been here in spring, we've been here in summer, and now we're here in autumn. And each of those seasons has a beauty all of its own. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. I'm going to go across now to another bench, which is waiting for me to sit down, and to read you another poem about autumn. This one of Shakespeare's sonnets that I'm sure some of you will know already. Here's my favourite intersection in the park, where roads meet. I don't know why, I just love this intersection with the street lamps and the trees lining the path. It always seems to be inviting you to walk up that path towards the vanishing point. You can see someone walking away from us. And then that way, up that path, again lined with those autumnal trees. Or that path that way. Or that path towards Buckingham Palace. Some of you will recognise that this is the path that leads to Buckingham Palace. This park, Green Park, is like an intersection of these paths. But it's a park I love, I don't know why. I think it's those rows of trees. It seems to be inviting me to walk through it. Seems to be inviting me upon a journey. And it's been the park of my lockdown. It's been the park which I've come back to day after day. I expect you to have your sacred places. A tunnel of trees. I feel this park is a bit like a David Hockney painting, and to see it in every season is very special. Well, I'm now going to read to you Sonnet 73. This is a sonnet in which Shakespeare links, I suppose, autumn with the process of getting old and dying. And I think one of the things that all of us feel in this time of COVID is a greater sense of our own mortality. That doesn't need to be a sort of dark and horrible thing. It is too is part of life. I always remember that St. Francis of Assisi said, praise be to God for Sister Death, for death will do us no harm. It's almost like a relationship with death, that it is part of our lives. Anyway, in the Sonnet 73, Shakespeare shares these words. That time of year thou mayest in me behold, when yellow leaves or none or few do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold, bare ruined choirs where late the sweet birds sang. In me thou seest the twilight of such day, as after sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away, death's second self, that seals up all in rest. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire, that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as the deathbed whereon it must expire, consumed with that which it was nourished by. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. An incredible last two lines after describing that process of aging, of the autumn of life. Then he ends the poem or the sonnet with these words. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. To make our love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. I always remember my father before his death saying to me that he couldn't imagine that heaven could be any more beautiful than this world. He had an artist's eye. He really loved this world. He loved the beauty of it. He loved the Dorset hills. He loved the trees. He loved the countryside. He loved people. And he always said, and I think it was that kind of transition stage between life and death and new life, where it was almost like he already sensed heaven, but heaven on earth. And I think in some people we notice that peacefulness, that sense that that there is no division between here and the hereafter. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. Well, I certainly love this park, and I'm sure there are places all around you and people all around you who you love and cherish too, and perhaps this is the time to love and cherish those things even more than we usually do. To love and cherish those things that we've taken for granted. To love and cherish those things which we sometimes are so close to, we've stopped noticing. I'm going to walk on a little bit, and if you've got time, do follow me. You may wonder why the camera is going in complete circles. It's because I've dropped my poems on the ground, but off we go again, down this beautiful row of trees. Good morning. Good morning. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His steadfast love endures forever. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. It's a kind of call to love the moment, to be present in the moment, to not be so caught up in the anxieties of the past and the fear of the future that we stop loving the present. Sam Wells, in his Being With course, which Sally Hitchner and Sam have put together, talks about faith, hope and love. And Sam says that faith is the faith that the past has been redeemed by Christ's love for us. The past has been forgiven, and that we have been set free to live the present. Faith, hope and love. Hope is the future, the word for the future. That Christ has given us that hope to live the future, to live without fear, to live in the knowledge that we are loved and beloved of God. But the word for now is love. Faith, hope, and love. Love is for now. Love is what we must live now. The Pope, in his wonderful new encyclical, talks about the way that we don't try and convert people by words and by argument, We simply, like St. Francis of Assisi, are called to live love now, to live in God's love now. Faith that we have been forgiven and redeemed and blessed and cherished by God. Hope in the future that the God who walks with us will become the springtime in us. But love now. Love even in this time of difficulty and struggle. Love more than ever in this autumn time, where the leaves fall and where the green turns to gold and brown and the leaves carpet the floor. The time when we let go of things but also realize that the eternal things are with us always. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His mercy endures forever. His love endures forever. All right. There's some great runners here, running through the park. There's Buckingham Palace for you. Give thanks to the Lord for our Queen, the head of our church, and such a prayerful person herself. Remember when the Queen visited St. Martin in the Fields, I was expecting to be overwhelmed by the pomp and the wonder of meeting the Queen. But the thing that really struck me about the Queen was her prayerfulness. She seemed like she is an elderly grandmother, in fact great-grandmother, who was devoted to God. She sat in our church and she prayed. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His mercies endure forever. And I was aware when I saw the Queen of all the struggles that she's been through in her own life, and the way it's her faith that's kept her strong and rooted in that incredible service she gives to our nation. Well, I'm going to finish our meditation here, down by the swans in the St. James's Park Lake. Oh, pelicans. I read you a poem about getting older. I want to finish by reading a poem by Maggie Smith about bringing a small baby into the autumn park. First fall. I'm your guide here in the evening dark, morning streets. I point and name, look, the sycamore, their mottled paint-by-numbers bark. Look, the leaves rusting and crisping at the edges. I walk through the park with you, my darling, on my chest. Stars smoulder well. And now the daylight. Look, the pond, the ducks, the pelicans, the dogs paddling after their prize sticks. Can't see those. Fall is with us. And now I've named them. Soon I'll have another season to offer you. Frost soft on the window and a porthole side there, ice sleeving the bare grey branches. The first time you see something die, you won't know it might come back again. I'm desperate for you to love the world because I've brought you here. I'm desperate for you to love the world because I've brought you here. Well, I've brought you to this park this morning. I hope you've loved the world, and I hope you will continue to live that compassion and love now. Thank you for joining me this morning for this Nazareth contemplative prayer. Just to remind you that I'm leading a meditation day at the Meditatio Center today. The details were on the film last week, and I think they might come up here today, but if you would like to come, you can email the Meditatio Center here in London. Please could you also pray today for St. Martin's Disability Day, where there's going to be a wonderful conference taking place, and of course the Alfriston Centre, which I told you about, and all those people who are being fed by the most delicious meals. Pray that that may stay open. And of course all your prayers too, that we may live the compassion of God in this season of autumn. God bless you all, and thank you for being with me.